Welcome to Finance in 5. Did you know that Warren Buffett, if he wanted to, could buy all of the world's above-ground investment-grade silver and still have at least $30 billion left over? You might be thinking, what has that got to do with me? Why should I care? Well, I think it's interesting when one person can corner the market so easily, but not only that, understanding what Warren Buffett actually does compared to what he says is very instructive as far as helping us understand how to invest our own money. Coming up today on Finance in 5. So welcome to the show. My name's Adam and I'm interested in the truth behind the headlines as opposed to what we're just being told we should believe. I don't know about you, but I'm struggling to find any videos on YouTube that don't depict Warren Buffett as being some kind of grandfatherly superhero who has accumulated all of this wealth and is giving constantly to charity and is just wise and benevolent and caring and amazing. Not that I'm going around digging up dirt on people. I just don't think it's a particularly balanced view.
I've seen some very, very wealthy people that nobody loves them,
And no better example of this can be seen than when we look at his approach to silver investment in the late 90s. So what did he actually do? Well, according to one article that I found here on Seeking Alpha, Buffett clearly was involved in the manipulation of silver prices in the late 1990s. In July 1997, Buffett began to accumulate large quantities of silver via Fibro, which was a subsidiary of Solomon Brothers. That was an investment bank Buffett had a huge stake in. So he eventually acquired 130 million ounces of silver. And this is interesting because of what Warren Buffett says during the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting of 1997.
I actually had a question about the silver purchase last year. When you announced it, you said that you believed that supply and demand fundamentals would only be established at a higher price, reestablished at a higher price. I was just wondering if you could go into more detail about what some of those fundamentals are. I mean, we've read a lot about like battery technology and some other things.
Yeah, we have no inside information about great new uses for silver or anything of the sort. You can see from looking at the numbers that aggregate demand, primarily from photography, from industrial uses, and from ornamental jewelry type uses, is close, call it 800 million plus ounces a year. And there are 500 million or so ounces being produced of silver annually, although there will be more coming on in the next couple of years. There's more coming on right now. However, most of that silver is produced as a byproduct in the mining of gold or copper or lead zinc, so that since it's a byproduct, it's not very responsive to price changes, because obviously if you've got a copper mine and you get a little silver out of it, you're much more interested in the price of copper than silver. So you have 500 million ounces or so of mine production, and you have 150 million ounces or so of reclaimed silver, a large part of which relates to a bullion above ground, which may have been 1 billion, 2 or more ounces a few years back, but which has been depleted. And no one knows the exact figures on this, but there's no question that the bullion inventory has been depleted significantly, which means that the present price for silver does not produce an equilibrium between supply as measured by newly mined silver plus reclaimed silver and usage. And that eventually something will happen to change that picture. Now, it could be reduced usage, it could be increased supply, but we liked it. Charlie?
Well, I think this whole episode will have about as much impact on Berkshire Hathaway's future as Warren's bridge playing. This is not a big deal for Berkshire. The fact that it keeps Warren amused, and it's a non-event.
It's $5 billion in American Express. I mean, it is close to a non-event, but if you see it there,
at least it shows the human personality at work.
He basically dismisses this acquisition as being trivial, and Charlie Munger talks about how, oh, it's just Warren's thing that he's done on the side here. It's all quite amusing, and completely pulling the wool over the eyes of shareholders. There'll be people who say, oh, well, he's making lots of money. Who cares? Yeah, but he isn't being honest about how he's done it. He said one thing and does something different. Basically, Buffett transports millions of ounces of silver from New York to London. And then when it gets there, prices collapse. And this is what Buffett had to say about this. in February 98. During 1998, Berkshire has accepted delivery of 87,510,000 ounces of silver in accordance with the terms of purchase contract, and the remaining contracts are 42 million ounces, calling for delivery at various dates until March 6, 1998. To date, all deliveries have been made on schedule. And here's what he says. If any seller should have trouble making delivery, Berkshire is willing to defer delivery for a reasonable period upon payment of a modest fee. And everyone goes, oh yeah, Buffett is so honest in how he accumulates his cash. This is such nonsense. And nobody's ever pointing out how ridiculous it is. Do you really think that this was a long-term investment? It was ridiculous. If this was going to be a long-term investment, why on earth would Buffett take delivery of the silver at such a massive premium over the deferred prices? If he expected the long-term fundamentals to result in silver's price rising over time, why not sell silver at a huge premium and buy it at a much lower price for delivery in, say, July or August of the same year? Because if he was right about the fundamentals, the July price would rise as the equilibrium was established. You know, he's the one who says that the equilibrium is going to establish a higher price. So actually, it would have been foolish to have taken delivery at a premium price if the goal was actually long-term investment. He paid a premium of 45 cents per ounce to get silver in early February 98. He was buying high and selling low. If he wasn't manipulating the market and his trading wasn't causing these price distortions, then he could have sold spot silver and bought silver for delivery a month from then and picked up 45 cents per ounce by doing so instead of standing for delivery. Buffett did not get that rich by being that stupid. No, the evidence clearly shows that he had another very short-term objective in mind. If he'd been acting just as a long-term investor, why would he have needed to people around the world as far away as India to scrape up all of the silver that they could possibly find, put it onto aeroplanes, fly it to London, just to get into the customs queue to be delivered in a 5-day window, which was later extended to 15 days? Why did he need the silver during those 5 days? What was the big rush if he was taking the long-term view? And why did he need it in London? Why? I mean, none of this makes any sense, but nobody talks about this. The answer is clearly that demanding delivery in a short time window in a single location doesn't really have anything to do with anybody's long-term view of silver and its price outlook. It was a corner, pure and simple. Exploit the frictions involved in bringing large quantities of silver to London on short notice, make it very expensive to deliver, which allows Buffett to loan out silver very profitably at the inflated lease rate. He created a shortage artificially, and he profited accordingly. And I suppose if you've got that much cash, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, the only thing that surprises me is the fact that nobody's really pointed this out before now. An investor acquiring silver based on a long-term view would probably try to minimize cost by buying in the cheapest locations and dates. But Buffett bought a lot of silver at the most expensive location and the most expensive date. Then he puts this little quote in: if any seller should have trouble making timely delivery, Berkshire is willing to defer delivery for a reasonable period upon payment of a modest fee. How saintly. The market rate for deferring delivery by as little as a month was very high, as we showed you in that chart earlier, 75% on an annualized basis. So in dollar terms, 45 cents per ounce, 6% of the price to defer delivery by 1 month. That doesn't sound like a modest fee to me. It's insane. Couldn't a long-term investor wait a month? No. So the lease rate shows you exactly what the modest fee was. Deferring delivery for a month costs 75% annualized, which is 6% per month. That is not even modest for a loan shark. The market showed signs of shortage. The shortage had one cause: Buffett taking massive deliveries of silver in London. So keep this in mind when you hear Buffett praised from the heavens as being this amazing bloke who is just so perfect. And if only we could be more like him. I'm not attacking him. I know he's over 90. He's made a lot of money for a lot of people. But please, consider the fact that there is a disconnect very frequently between what he says and what he actually does. He's more than willing to play smash mouth to add to his fortune. He's also very willing to lie about it. And he's also very willing to claim sanctimoniously that he's doing those he is smashing a favor. It doesn't sound too saintly to me.